Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me. Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has revealed his post-war plan for Gaza and the West Bank. The Palestinians have rejected it. The Biden administration has called it disappointing. But what is the response in Israel? Joining me for today's discussion is Israel's former Justice Minister, Yossi Beilin. Mr. Beilin, Prime Minister Netanyahu has revealed his post-war plan for Gaza and the West Bank. According to him, Israel requires complete security control over both Gaza and the West Bank. It also wants demilitarization and de-radicalization of Gaza, a presence on the Gaza-Egypt border, and according to some reports, a buffer zone in Gaza. How do you, as a former justice minister, respond to this?
It's not serious. It's not serious. And, one of the indications for the non-seriousness of this plan, by the way, it is not a plan. Even he did not call it a plan. It is a bunch of principles, actually summing up his last speeches, not more than that. But the most indicative point is that it is a non-issue in Israel. You can look at the papers yesterday and today. It is mentioned on page 7, 8, 9. It's not wow, Netanyahu revealed his plan. There is no secret that he revealed, no view that he has not expressed in the past. And some of the points are okay. I mean, demilitarization of the future Palestinian state. Of course, it doesn't refer to a Palestinian state. It refers to Gaza. But Gaza should be part of the Palestinian future state. And demilitarization of the Palestinian state is a very important principle for Israel, has been. And in no negotiations that I took place, the Palestinians opposed it.
So when you say that this is not a serious plan, when you say that the papers have buried it on pages 7, 8, and 9, you're saying that this is not a plan that Israel is taking seriously and the people don't believe that the Prime Minister even means what he's saying.
Exactly.
Is this a setback for him?
For him, it's very difficult for him to have a setback because his popularity is so low, like never before. He knows that if he goes to elections tomorrow, there is no chance in the world that he would be re-elected. And somebody else after October the 7th would have resigned. He sticks to power and wants to do whatever he can in order to stay in power. But he will not have this power because this ability, because Israel is, after all, a democracy. And there is a public protest against him. And eventually we will have elections. We will have early elections. And he will be ousted.
Let's, Mr. Beilin, talk about some of the details, such as we know them, such as Mr. Netanyahu has presented them, to get a sense of how you respond to them. He's made clear that he wants Hamas rule replaced with local Palestinians, and he specifically made clear that excludes the Palestine Authority. Furthermore, he says that these local representatives must not be affiliated with any countries that have terrorist associations, nor must they be supported by them. Do you think this could at all be acceptable to the people of Gaza?
It's a joke. It is a sad joke. I mean, what is actually referring to is some gangs in Gaza will take upon themselves to govern Gaza. This is the last thing that all of us need. The only thing that I agree with him, it is not a small issue, is that, and we talked about it already a few times since October, is that Hamas will have no part in the future government in Gaza, whether it is a trusteeship or a technocratic government, or if it is ruled by the PLO or by the Palestinian Authority or whatever. This is very important for us, that Hamas will leave the government in Gaza. You don't have to eradicate Hamas, eliminate Hamas. It is also impossible because there are many people who support, regretfully, but they support the ideas of Hamas, like so many Egyptians are supporting the Muslim Brothers, and you cannot ignore them. You cannot, but they are not in power anymore. And Hamas should not be part of the future power structure in Gaza. Here I agree with him 100%. But it doesn't mean that, first of all, I don't think that we should take back Gaza ages and give it back to tribes or whatever. And another thing is, the second thing is that he is not in a position, or Israel is not in a position, to decide which Palestinians will rule Gaza. We cannot build families and say to them, you should be in charge on the north or on the south. There is a Palestinian Authority. There is the PLO with which we signed agreements. And they are going to rule Gaza in the future. The only question is whether they are ready to rule Gaza. It's a question.
But
I'm
you're
not sure.
something very important. You're saying that Israel is not in a position to decide which Palestinians will rule Gaza. And secondly, you're saying you have an agreement and understanding with the Palestine Authority. They are the ones who should rule, even if at the moment they are not able or prepared to do so. You, as a former justice minister, would be happy for the Palestine Authority to rule both the West Bank and Gaza.
Undoubtedly. Tomorrow. I'm not sure that they are ready for that. I'm afraid not. But if it is up to me, I mean, what really happened? Israel had an agreement with the PLO. Part of it was the establishment of a Palestinian Authority. Part of it was that Gaza and the West Bank are part of the same political entity, and there is a safe passage between Gaza and the West Bank. The decision to withdraw from Gaza in 2005 unilaterally was not according to the Oslo Agreement. Now that Hamas is not there, it is possible to unite again the Gaza Strip and the West Bank under one rule, and the rule according to our agreement with the Palestinians. We cannot, just get up in the morning and say, maybe families will rule Gaza. We agreed with them that the Palestinian Authority will be in charge both on Gaza and the Palestinian and the West Bank. So if I say that it is the Palestinian Authority which should rule Gaza, it is not that I invent something out of the blue for the Palestinians. This is the agreement with them.
But not only does Mr. Netanyahu's plan completely exclude the Palestinian Authority from any future role and power in Gaza, more importantly, he doesn't seem to talk of a two-state solution. We know that for 15 years he's been against it. There's no mention of it now in this plan. Do you believe he's put his foot down firmly against it?
Yes, but so what? I mean, he was for it in the past. He was quoted endlessly when he spoke in the General Assembly of the United Nations year after year in support for the two-state solution. Now he says, I must stay in power because only I can prevent a Palestinian state. Is it a joke? What does it mean? Why did he change his mind? I don't know. But if you ask me, the fact that he doesn't mention the Palestinian state in his so-called plan is more than obvious, because now this is his flag to prevent a Palestinian state.
Tell me, how do you assess the American response to Prime Minister Netanyahu's plan? America is Israel's most important ally, but America has repeatedly made clear they stand for a two-state solution. Secondly, America is opposed to any buffer zone in Gaza. And thirdly, America is opposed to any Israeli military presence on the Rafah border. Blinken, the Secretary of State, has publicly said he's disappointed. How concerned should Israel be by this pretty negative response from Washington?
Should be. But I'm not sure whether the government of today, which is the most rightist government ever, is worried about it. I mean, you have there people who are not worried about open confrontation with the United States. Netanyahu is not one of them. They are to the right of Netanyahu. But he is in their hands, because if he is irritating them, he is risking his majority in the coalition. And
so you're saying that Netanyahu should be very concerned by the negative response from Washington, but Netanyahu is in the hands of the right wing, people like Ben Gvir and Smotrich, and as a result, is unable to act independently. He's being manipulated in a sense by them.
Yeah. This is the situation. I don't want to diminish or to dismiss the Netanyahu entity itself. I mean, he is a rightist. He is very, very hawkish. But there is already also some pragmatism in him. To prove it is what I said before. I mean, that he supported the two-state solution in 2009. He went out in a special speech, which was called the Bar Ilan speech, after the name of the university where he spoke in support of the two-state solution. He says, this is my vision, to have two states for the two peoples which we live in side by side in peace. And people said, wow, this man who had written so much against the Palestinian state until 2009 changed his mind. But now he changed his mind again.
Mr. Beilin, Netanyahu has also called for the shutting down of the UN Palestine Refugee Agency, UNRWA. Given UNRWA's experience and its expertise, can it really be replaced by other international aid agencies?
It should. I mean, there is one international agency, which is the UNHCR, which was headed until Secretary General Guterres became the UN Secretary General. It was led by him. And I had discussions with Secretary General Guterres about the fact that you have actually in the UN two different refugee organizations. There is no reason to not to unite them. The only reason, that they are not one is that the UNRWA was established a few years before the UNHCR. So they didn't want to be part of it. You are right in saying that the UNRWA is providing services to the Palestinians, and it is also, I think, the biggest employer or the second biggest employer in Gaza. So if you say that you want to end the existence of UNRWA, And UNRWA is also very problematic in the education and other things. I mean, they are not. I understand very well the criticism against UNRWA and the fact that some of them were involved in massacre on October the 7th is really crazy, crazy. But when you say that you don't want to see UNRWA, and I don't want to see UNRWA as a separate organization, and part of my agreement on the Geneva Initiative with the Palestinians was that in 5 years, UNRWA will not exist and will be replaced by the Palestinian state totally. This should be the case. I mean, who should provide services to the Palestinians? The Palestinian future state, which doesn't exist. So
You're saying UNRWA should be replaced not by another international agency, but by the Palestinian state itself.
yeah, eventually. But as long as you don't have a Palestinian state, it should be replaced by the the organization which deals with refugees everywhere in the world.
Which is UNHCR.
Yeah, but you know, it just to say it is not enough. UNRWA is problematic, but UNRWA is indispensable right now. And when you are saying something like this in a plan or so-called plan, it is a joke.
I take your point. UNRWA is problematic, but UNRWA is also indispensable at the moment. And to say you're going to replace it in a plan is a joke because it suggests you haven't thought through the issue carefully.
100%.
Meanwhile, Finance Minister Smotrich is calling for the colonization of the West Bank.
Yeah, wonderful. Not the West Bank.
Complete for the audience. He's calling for colonization of the West Bank by building thousands of new housing units. And almost immediately, Secretary of State Blinken called that counterproductive. He said it was inconsistent with international law. So my question is, are differences, perhaps even divisions, between at least the right-wing part of the Netanyahu government and the Biden administration growing? And does that worry you?
It worries me a lot. And they are growing, for sure they are growing. I mean, nobody is hiding it. Smotrich, I mean, when you tell him, for example, that something is against the international law, he will laugh. He is abiding only the laws of God. He is a messianic person. So to tell him these things, I mean, he doesn't understand what you are talking about. And so, I mean, it never happened to Israel before. We never had these people in government. You know, only 3 years ago, Netanyahu vouched that he will never have Ben Gvir, who is the twin brother almost of Smotrich, in his government. And I think that when he said it, he really meant it, because who would like people like Smotrich and Ben Gvir in their government? But eventually, when he saw that he is dependent on them, and if he doesn't include them in the government, he will not become he will not return to the job of the prime minister. He found himself in a situation where he decided to prefer his own personal interest on the interest of the nation.
Absolutely.
So,
but tell me this, if these differences, even divisions between the right wing of the Netanyahu government, to whom the prime minister is committed, and the Washington administration of President Biden continue and grow, what impact could this have on your relationship with your most important ally, America?
well, the good news for us is that America does see Israel as an ally, whoever is in power. And there were tensions in the past. And in the last months, the friendship of the United States was demonstrated in many ways. And actually, almost to save Israel. So Israel is in debt to the United States. And most of the Israelis know it very, very well, and to President Biden personally. These people are, in my view, very, very dangerous people. thanks heaven, they are not representing a majority or they are not close to a majority. But sometimes extremists, even if they are a small group in the society, are having an impact. And they never had an impact like what they have today.
You're saying Ben Gvir and Smotrich are very, very dangerous.
Very much. For
Meanwhile,
us, I mean, first and foremost for the Israelis themselves. I mean, it had to do with the legal revolution that we almost had, and thanks heaven was cancelled. And it is also now with, for example, they are saying that the releasing the hostages is only secondary to overcoming Hamas. And most of the Israelis believe that the most important thing is to release the hostages that we are having, the babies of 1 year old. I mean, only crazy people would have kidnapped such people and then ask for exchange of prisoners with Hamas police or whatever. So, I mean, they are a minority. Netanyahu is blamed for giving them the legitimacy. This is the point, to make Ben Gvir, who is a criminal. He's a criminal. I mean, he was indicted 40 times or whatever. And Smotrich, I mean, this is the worst thing that Netanyahu did to Israel.
now, in an interview that the Prime Minister gave the American television channel CBS on Sunday yesterday, he confirmed that a ceasefire and hostage deal could, I repeat, could be in the offing. However, this sort of talk has been heard repeatedly in the last 6 to 8 weeks, and it never fructified. Do you believe it's likely this time around to materialize, or is this just talk?
No, it happened in the past, and about hundreds of hostages were released.
But not since then.
Not since then. No, I presume that now it is realistic, but I don't know. I'm not privy to the details.
Is he under enormous pressure from the relatives of the hostages to do everything to bring them back? Something that, as you pointed out, Smotrich and Ben Gvir have made secondary.
He is under pressure, but I think that he can sustain this pressure.
Meanwhile, the Israeli military action in Gaza continues. Nearly 30,000 have died, nearly 70,000 are injured. And let me quote what one of your most highly regarded columnists in Haaretz newspaper, Gideon Levy, wrote. He says, there is no way to explain Israel's conduct in the Gaza Strip. Destruction, killing, starvation, and siege in such momentous dimensions can no longer be explained or justified. Gideon Levy calls it evil. How do you, a former justice minister, view the impact of Israel's campaign on Gaza and, more importantly, on the 2.3 million Palestinians who live there?
First of all, many of those who were killed in the last months are Hamas soldiers. They don't separate between civilians and Hamas people, because most of them are dressed like civilians, maybe, or whatever. So at least a third of them are Hamas people. Some of them are those who were involved with the massacre in October. Now, we talked about it several times, and I said to you that I hate to be in a situation whereby I have to accept such an Israeli reaction. And always I would like to find peaceful solutions for such situations. The only peaceful situation would have been if Hamas's leadership, I'm not speaking about thousands of people, would have agreed to do what Yasser Arafat did in 82, when he decided to agree to leave Lebanon, if you remember, and went to Tunisia with the leadership of the PLO. And then, as you know, after a few years, he came back, even not only back to Lebanon, but back to Palestine, to Gaza, and to Jericho. Had they agreed to do something like that, it would have been the end of the war. and there would have been no need to chase them. The point is that they are very selfish, and they are seeing the suffering of their own people, and they continue to run away and to shoot and to bombard and whatever. And I don't have a better solution. Maybe Gideon Levy has a better solution than me. To say that it is bad, you won't find somebody better than me. It's awful. And the suffering there is breaking my heart day and night. But I must always ask myself, what is the alternative? Could Israel do nothing after the massacre? It would have been our end. We couldn't just be silent. What we had to do, rather than saying we have to eliminate Hamas or something ambitious like that, which will never happen, we should have said we don't want the Hamas, as I said in the beginning, governing Gaza anymore. That's it. That's it. And there should be a third party, a trusteeship, the Palestinian Authority, whoever, running Gaza from today on.
I
This
hear,
would have
I hear the anguish in your voice, but I also hear that what alternative is there? Tell me, do you think your countrymen and your countrywomen share this anguish as well as the feeling we don't have an alternative? Are they like you, caught between a sort of devil and the deep blue sea?
many of them. I can't tell you the numbers, but I don't believe that many people are happy to see babies killed by us as collateral damage. I don't think that this is the case. But even the hatred, the anger, the feeling that something which never happened before happened in October is shared by many. And I really, had you come to us, you would see a nation in mourning for 4 months. You cannot ask anybody, how are you? It's crazy. You cannot, the answer usually is, please get to the second question, or I feel like you. But nobody will say, okay, which is the spontaneous answer before you think. When somebody is asking you, how are you? You say, I'm okay, fine, whatever. Nobody will give you this answer today. So you have in Israel a very, very, very difficult situation. When I'm speaking about the two-state solution, it is not easy. And I see moderate people who are saying, with whom? With these people who killed us, massacred us, raped us. I believe that it is not for long, and that eventually people will understand that the only thing for us is to have a political solution. But if you ask me whether today I'm representing the majority, regretfully not.
Mr. Beilin, in that CBS interview that the Prime Minister gave yesterday, he also confirmed that even if there is a brief ceasefire and hostage deal, military action on the ground in Rafah, where 1.4 million are sheltering, will definitely happen. And once again, the United States has publicly, and this time repeatedly, made clear that they would advise against this. Is Netanyahu's insistence on sending in ground troops to Rafah wise, or is it foolish?
Well, here there is a very, very important point. The Americans never told us in the last 4 months, stop the fire. And they are even voted against the UN resolution a few days ago and vetoed it. Now, what are they saying? Don't enter Rafah before you have a solution for these 1.4 million Palestinians who are actually finding their shelter in Rafah because you asked them to move from north to south. Now, the Israeli government is saying, we will find a solution.
Can Can
Yeah,
they
they
find
can.
a solution? Where do
They
you see
can.
them?
I'm not. I don't want to put myself in a situation where I have to show a map and to say, yeah, but they can. They can allow them, first of all, to go to the north, and second, to find another place in the center of the strip. So the idea is not to enter Rafah before there is such a solution. And if you ask me whether I agree to it, my answer is yes, as long as the leadership of Hamas is not telling us we are not returning to rule Gaza. If they say so, then I don't think that there is any need to enter Rafah.
But you really believe that 1.4 million people who, on the advice of the Israeli government, sought shelter in Rafah can now be en masse moved either to the center or the north and will still be able to live some sort of human existence? It's pretty close to
I'm
being
not sure
already.
I'm not sure about the conditions. I mean, I would not like to be in their place. So we are speaking about something which is very temporary and should very soon, as soon as possible, be changed, when the world and Israel, as part of it, would save them and put them in normal human conditions. But we are speaking now about something which will take days. I mean, the entering Rafah, at least Netanyahu himself said that he's not speaking neither of years, or nor about months. It will, or weeks even. If you, oh no, he said that it takes few weeks until we finish our mission in Rafah, and maybe there will be no other option. But what is important is that the uninvolved Palestinians will not be there anymore.
You're saying, if I understand correctly, military operation on the ground in Rafah is another one of those anguishing decisions for which there is no alternative. It has to be done regardless of how much pain and suffering it may inflict upon innocent Palestinians. There is no alternative.
You used your own words, but generally speaking, you are right. I still hope that the Palestinian leadership in Gaza, the Hamas leadership, will understand the damage that they are actually causing by not leaving Gaza.
Mr. Beilin, thank you very much for the time you have given me, and thank you very much once again for expressing your internal anguish alongside the fact that these are decisions that don't have an alternative, but you've made clear the anguish you feel at the fact that it has to be done. I thank you for your honesty. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you
Stay
for
safe.
having me.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch The Interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.